And welcome to all our viewers. In today's episode of Human Insights Uncovered, we are putting the customer experience at the center of our conversation. And for this, I have invited a real expert, the CEO of Experience Catalyst, Diane Magers. She will help us stop losing customers by revealing her proven tactics for exceptional customer experience. Hello, Diane. How are you today?
I am great. Yeah, pleasure to be here. And I'm really excited about our conversation and sharing this with the audience.
Likewise. Before we start, can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Of course. My name's Diane Magers. I am a CCXP, a certified experienced professional. But I also come with a background in clinical psychology. So I've been in human behavior a long time and an MBA. So really have been in the business world over 25 years doing this work kind of before it was the cool thing to do. I've worked for two large major organizations, Cisco Foods, a food distributor, and AT&T Business Solutions. I was also the CEO for the Customer Experience Professionals Association. So I was blessed to be able to talk to many practitioners in this space and lots of companies who are going down the same path that we're going to talk about today. So pleasure to be here.
What an impressive background. You have extensive experience in customer experience sales, marketing across various company sizes, as we heard. Can you share some key insights or lessons learned that are applicable to both startups and Fortune 100 companies when it comes to customer engagement?
Yes, I believe that organizations who are winning today in experience, customer experience, are building it around really experience management. So it's one thing to say customer experience, yes, is important, but how are you really understanding, designing, and measuring how what you do impacts the customer every day? Because let's be honest, how well we do that is where business results come from. So you think about the Disneys and the Apples and organizations that do very well financially. It's not by accident. They are purposeful and intentional about making sure that experience gets embedded in everything they do. The second part of that is in being engaging customers is this deep understanding of more about their lives and what they're trying to accomplish. I see a lot of surveys and feedback, and it's a lot about what the organization is doing and the satisfaction people have. But what we really need to start understanding is what are the goals that the customer has, whether you're B2B or B2C, and what they're trying to accomplish and how well we're helping them achieve value and engage them so they come back, they refer us, they spend more with us. It's building that type of engagement and relationship. So that's what I found to be the purpose and intent, embedding it in everything you do, and making sure that you're focusing on the right things that are going to create value for the customer and eventually the brand.
These are definitely some great advices. As a founder and the CEO, you've undoubtedly faced unique challenges in ensuring exceptional customer experience in your own company as well. Could you share a specific instance where a company was losing customers and you implemented a tactic that turned this situation around, and what were the key strategies you employed there?
Of course, I can share a little bit about an organization who I would call it a little bit of what we say the Wild West. So they were really doing a lot of things that were good for the customer, but they were all disconnected. So the marketing team was doing one thing, the sales team was doing another, the onboarding team and customer success and support were not aligned. And so we're getting a lot of feedback about the handoffs, left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, or I don't have a consistent experience. It seems like you're a different company depending on who I talk to. So this ability was really eroding the trust that the customers had in the organization because it was a B2B, a business to business. We were able to bring the practice of journey mapping, service design, and this holistic view and understanding from kind of end to end and top from customer emotion all the way down to the systems and data, and understand how we needed to redesign the way the organization worked. So cross-functional teams, Okay, so we never did a project that didn't have a cross-functional team. We taught design techniques to pretty much everyone because everybody's designing something, whether they were writing a script in the care center or they were looking at the marketing materials they were sending out. How was the customer receiving those? So by building some of these capabilities in the organization, we were able to begin to design more holistically and connect things and get more efficient and effective. Because as the teams began to realize that, hey, I didn't think about what I do here, they interact with the same people or they're doing X, later on in their interactions. How am I impacting that? Or the onboarding experience, that the customers felt like there was just a complete handoff, like almost literally a handoff where you're doing one thing and you're getting all this attention, but the onboarding piece is a whole different team. And they felt that gap between those two things. Like I lost contact with the person I wanted. So I give you that example because it is very, very important to think about. One of the premises of experiences we have is we need the organization to know us, to coordinate around what we're trying to do, to make it easy and effective, to be seamless, and to establish that trust that no matter who I talk to in the organization, you're there. So that organization was able to come together and learn and build new capabilities as an organization to be able to deliver a better experience.
So, do you think this organization was grown to that stage where they had too many people and too many teams, and this became an issue, or they could have planned for that a little bit earlier? So, my question is, customer churn is a common issue for many businesses. Could you discuss some warning signs that a company might be losing customers and how early detection can make a difference? So, is there a period when it's too early to start thinking of customer churn, or a period when it's too late?
No, never too early. Never too early. I mean, that's the backbone of your organization. How customers behave with you. That's why they spend their money with you or why they don't spend their money with you. So we pay attention to behavior. We pay attention to feedback. So I think a part of what if I share some terms, I'll explain them. Lagging indicators. So what has been happening recently is we're paying more attention to leading indicators. What that means is when you think about a lagging indicator, I can ask somebody after they have an experience with us how that experience went. That's a lagging indicator. That means something's already happened and I'm just getting feedback on it. We're finding leading indicators like where somebody currently spends their time and spends their money, or in the moment getting that, what are you trying to accomplish? Like think about when you go into, there's a big chain here that is a home improvement store. And when you come in and somebody comes up to you and asks you a question, they say, well, how can I help you today? And you can tell them what you're there for. And the next question they ask is, what are you trying to do? Because that helps them really make good recommendations to you as to what you're really trying to accomplish. Not necessarily, I need to buy like a drill or a hammer, but what am I going to use that tool for? So we find that these lagging indicators and this information coming in from social and from watching behavior and understanding what customers are trying to accomplish is better information combined with those lagging indicators, getting us the feedback. So understanding where they're headed, designing around that, and then the feedback should help us understand, did we help you achieve your goal or not? So it's less now about, how do you feel about us, and rather more about the value creation we're creating for them.
This sounds really good and valuable, and I'm sure that the CEOs that are listening to us are also nodding their heads as I am right now. But many CEOs actually struggle to balance the demands of scaling their business with maintaining customer-centric values. Sometimes it will be the budgets, other times it will be the team focus that I have now. How do you ensure that your company growth doesn't compromise the quality of the customer experience?
If I think about the way that organizations work today, and I understand being a previous CEO myself, I understand the pressures of leveraging your resources appropriately, growing at the right rate, putting things in that are going to scale. What I find with customer experience is it seems like this very nebulous, it's all about feedback and understanding if customers are happy or not, when in fact it is more a way of operating. If you think about the cross-functional teams I talked about earlier, that was a much more efficient and effective way to work than having teams working in their silos. Because we were able to see and preempt and plan for how the experience was going to be covered all along the customer's interactions as well as across channels. By having everybody in the room, we were much more effective in getting things accomplished. And so it actually can help you scale faster and be more agile. Because if you have that cross-functional team and you launch a product, let's say, you start to get feedback that the content or maybe the onboarding or the initial use is a challenge for customers. You bring that team back together and you're very agile in saying, what can we do? What can we do to really make this become more effective? We launched it, we tested, but it's not resonating. They can come right back in, they understand it, and they can start making changes. And not just making changes in their silo, but understanding all the changes that need to be made to make that a better product. So I would encourage shifting a little bit of when you think about customer experience, people think about Net Promoter Score and surveys. That's not what we do. That's only part of what we do. The main part of what we do is we make it part of the way the organization works. We embed it into the way people think, how projects get scoped, how they understand what the customer really wants and needs versus what we think they need, and then how we develop and design the experiences or products or service to best meet those needs and what measures and value is going to come out of it for both the customer as well as the brand. So the results are better internally as we build, but also externally because we now have identified what success looks like for both the customer and the brand, and we can measure that in dollars, productivity, spend, number of referrals, purchases, upsell, all the things that we talk about. That's what the C-suite is talking about. I often say this is the conversing CX speak to C-suite speak. So we're talking about revenue. We're talking about financial impact. That's what building this discipline is all about in an organization.
And this brings me back to one of the first advices you gave us when we started this podcast to make sure you have an organization that is customer centric in first place. So people who do believe that the customer should be at the heart. So if it comes from the leaders of the company, if this is the mindset of the people we have employed, this will go without having to jeopardize it. It will kind of be embedded in the culture of the company.
Yes, and I would say that anybody who has been through this before has said that leadership is probably, there's two things. Leadership is the most important thing that makes us successful. If leaders really understand experience management as a discipline and know how to leverage it to achieve business results, and that's their goal, that will become successful. The second piece is the silos. So it's also about the leadership, making sure that when they're talking about doing a project or a new product, that they're walking the walk and talking the talk, that they're working together to say, hey, we need to get our teams together. So they need to demonstrate, much like being a parent for kids, you need to demonstrate the behaviors and talk the way that you want your organization to talk, because people watch leadership and say, if you're talking about, we're all about the customer, and yet when it comes to making cuts in an organization, you're cutting the people who have that skill set, or you're cutting people who are really there frontline with the customers who are having the biggest impact on them, positive impact, that's an issue. So you really need to think about, as leaders, educate yourself, talk to people, find somebody that has done this before and has been successful. Disney, Adobe, Intuit. Look at their case studies, understand how they built it into their operations. That's really the difference that I see. Is there is either a high level of we're just going to do this and kind of monitor what's going on with customers and maybe do a few projects, to really adopting it as a way of working, a way of thinking, and a way of working. And that has to start at the top.
Very well said. As a leader, setting the tone for your team is essential. Um, Apart from checking case studies from some of the big leaders in this industry, people who have done it already, how do you install a customer first mindset in your employees? Walking the walk and talking the talk, but is there anything else that you want to give us as an example that can demonstrate this mindset on customer retention?
Yes, I believe that if you have good alignment and accountability to experience, what that looks like is in one organization that we worked with, they were going through the phases of product development. And we understood they were going through the phases of the development and then launching products, and the products still had a lot of issues. The instructions weren't correct, and people didn't know how to use it. They weren't getting the results and adoption that they wanted. And so by going back through that product development management cycle, we were able to put in at those stage gates how they'd cared for the experience. So an example of that would be, have you scoped this to understand if we create this new product, who are the people who are going to adopt it? Or if we have a current product and we're making changes, what baseline measures do we need in place? Number of people adopting, time spent on the app, whatever it is. Do you have the baselines of where we are today? And what are your targets? And how are you going to get there? How is this change going to help you get there? When it comes to the final phase, have we tested it appropriately? Have we tested it in the field? Not in, just user experience, or not like some organizations have their employees test things. It's like, that's not the way it's done. It's a start, but you really have to get it out there and do a pilot and come back with that information and make tweaks, that very agile approach. So by embedding these accountability and have you done this and have you accounted for the experience in that process, they were able to accelerate their time in market. They were able to ensure that they had less issues going out the door with the product, and that they got better adoption and referrals and product build as they began to roll out. So that's a way, when people ask about examples, looking at the things that organizations do internally to make sure the experience is cared for is one of the differentiators between people who talk about customer centricity and who are actually doing it, who are actually making it a part of their operations.
Even though we might have the very best intention to implement all of that, and we are implementing it, every once in a while, a mistake might occur. Building a trust with the customer is a paramount. Have there been moments when you had to rebuild trust after a customer had a negative experience with your company or a client's company? Or how did you go about repairing this relationship? You mentioned the example with these instructions that were not yet good enough, but anything else?
Yes, there's a lot of things that you can do to re-engage an individual customer. That happened to be a B2B customer, so the relationship is already really there. Consumer relationships are a little different. They're a little more fickle, I would say. But an example of that, when you think about how you're recovering from an opportunity, one thing is to own up. I mean, what we think about in a relationship, if you're in a personal relationship with someone, you need to have a conversation about things that aren't going well. It needs to be on the table. You need to be open. You need to reestablish that trust. You need to have a conversation around it. So many organizations have teams that spend time when there are these problems. They're circling back to the customer, having a conversation with them, making amends with them. What can we do to make this easier? Or, hey, let's get you some additional training, and we're also going to take your feedback and go change the instructions because we've learned that we didn't do it right the first time. Thank you for your feedback. We're going to use that, and let's solve your problem. So that those conversations may be difficult to have, but they in fact drive more loyalty. Because I don't know if you've ever had a problem with a company. If they respond to me after send them a survey or I give them some type of feedback, if they respond to me, I'm going to be like, you guys made a mistake and you owned up to it. And I admire that. And I'm going to continue to do business with you. I'll give you another chance. So that's where it comes into play. But organizations also have to be looking at the bigger picture, the aggregate of all of that information. So it's one thing to fix one-on-one with a customer, but you should be paying attention to what are customers saying overall? Hey, they're saying that our instructions aren't that great through feedback, social media, the behavior they're using, like the decline of the product usage goes down immediately. Well, why is that? It's one thing to look at the data, but why is that happening? So going out to customers and understanding where we missed the mark or what we need to do differently. And then we call it co-creating with them, bringing that back and then creating again across the team, launching it and seeing if it made a difference. So that's more of what you think about the root cause of some of the problems. You got to be paying attention to that level as well. The one-on-one and then the bigger level of what's happening systematically that we can solve for.
Great advices. I keep hearing in your recommendations to use the social media, to listen to what people are saying there, to find these innovative approaches of getting some feedback. Innovation is a recurring theme in your career as well. How do you foster a culture of innovation within an organization, especially in the context of customer engagement?
Innovation, I think people have to be very specific about innovation. I also think when I hear the word insight, I think the same thing. I'm not sure everybody has the same definition of what those things are. So it'd be interesting for you if you have an innovation lab or you're encouraging people to be innovative, what exactly does that mean? And do they have the skill set? I mean, that's really being innovative is a capability of an organization. Look at Apple. It's built into what they do. It's built into the DNA of the organization. That's not by accident. They teach people innovation. They teach them how to design differently. They teach them how to gather insights differently and think about connections that don't normally occur. So there's a lot of design techniques. There's innovation techniques and tools, but it's more of a skill than I think people let on to. Because you can tell anybody to be innovative, but what do you mean by that? Is that a brand new product? Is that like an adjacent industry we're going to try to bring in? So be very specific about it and also be specific about what behaviors you're looking for and what skill set that's going to take to enable those behaviors for innovation.
Sounds like recruitment is everything. Like if you want to foster a consumer-centric the team, you have to start with hiring consumer-centric people. If you want to foster innovation, you have to hire innovative people. That is one highlight I keep hearing.
I'll give a really a short example of that. There's one organization, I can't name the name, but if you recognize the brand, you always think about, explain to me if I give you the brand name, you would say, tell me about your interactions. And they say, oh my gosh, the people there are always so happy and they're always smiling. But when you go back into the organization and you look at their hiring practices, when they interview somebody for a job, whether it's frontline or a manager or even an executive, if they don't laugh or smile naturally 5 times in the interview, they don't get hired. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. That's just saying we have criteria for how people behave and what they do and who they are that contributes to the culture of our organization. So that's a great and fun example of how one organization makes sure that their culture of being happy comes across to their customers.
Yeah, great example. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
As someone who speaks at industry events and consults with companies, what are the current trends or emerging best practices you believe organizations should be aware of to enhance their customer experience practices? So innovation, but in the core of the customer experience practices.
Yes, I believe there are several trends happening right now, and I'll talk a little bit about kind of longer term trends and some that are more immediate. One of the biggest trends that we see is that this life experience. So I want you to think about, we say customer all the time, but really it's about the customer's life. And in the way that brands are working today, they have to begin to start working together. So a great example of that is if you have a refrigerator that gives you information and auto replenishes your milk and your eggs, right? That can tell you that requires a partnership between the refrigerator manufacturer and the grocery store chain. And we're going to see a lot more of that happen because we care about our lives and we don't want to have to touch multiple brands. Our whole goal and a brand's goal, an individual brand's goal, should be how can we enable and help that person be successful in what they're trying to do, regardless of whether I do that or not. Can I create a partnership with someone who can help do that? Can that be a differentiator of working with another brand? Do we need to acquire a company that has capabilities that we don't? Because it's the focus of that human life, the life experience, rather than just the interaction with you. Because think about yourself. How many brands do you touch every day? It's hundreds. Right? I'm looking at my computer. That's one. I'm looking at the coffee I drank this morning. And it's part of how we think about the way we go about our own lives, how brands are going to enable us and what's going to help us be more efficient, effective, and kind of that value, the Maslow's hierarchy. And I think a lot of that is going to happen as we see things kind of get flatter between brands. They're just going to have to work together. So the focus, when I say that, is really about the life experience. So it's not just customer, it's employee, it's your partner, it's your suppliers. So we see this huge rise in employee experience, meaning not that we're asking employees to put forth discretionary effort for the customer. We are actually mapping out what needs to happen when an employee gets recruited, when they get hired, how they're led, what skills they build, why they stay with the organization, and what we can do to optimize what they do every day, and give them a great experience too, because we know that will then turn into providing great experiences for customers. So that's another trend. AI is obviously a huge trend, but I think we have to be very purposeful in designing how AI gets used, and that clear blend of AI and human and chatbots and all the things we know technology-wise, because there are appropriate use cases. But when we think about that, we want to ensure that all that is seamless across the organization, and that for some interactions, you don't want AI. One example of that is for an insurance company somebody who's calling in to take a life insurance policy where somebody has passed away and they need to implement that policy. You don't want AI handling that. That requires you to have human contact. We don't want to lose that. We don't want to become so, hey, it's all about this. The brand engagement doesn't happen with an AI or chatbot. You can solve problems and be functional, but the emotional connection comes with how human you are and how much you can relate that customer to your brand. So that's only going to be done really through human contact in my mind. So we've got to be careful about that balance between the two. And then I think the last trend is we have a profession called experience management. We see product managers, digital teams, customer success, all learning more about this discipline and the capabilities we've been talking about, how they embed the tools, how they help with thinking, how they use and gather feedback, the processes they have today, the systems and data, and how they need to use that differently. The skill set is expanding to be more about how the different business units adopt things that will help them. And I think that's a really clear trend that we're seeing now, is that hunger for, we know we need to do this differently, and experience management professionals have been trying to do it more effectively, but now we've got kind of hungry audiences. So that's another trend we see in organizations today.
Really insightful, really insightful. Thank you. And maybe last question, reflecting on your journey as a CEO, what's the most valuable lesson you've learned about retaining customers and delivering an exceptional experience, and how has it influenced your approach today?
Listening, and watching. I believe that we as consumers or business to business partnerships, need to build that relationship with care and with conversation. I often talk about, surveys are a great example of that. Surveys sometimes are like one-way streets. We ask them for information, they give it back to us, and then they never hear from us again. And I would query if that's the way your marriage is going, that you're having a conversation, you're talking to your spouse, but you're not getting any feedback, that relationship won't last very long. So building a conversation strategy and engagement strategy with your customers. How are you going to really listen, be immersed in their lives, understand them better, and begin to really build a relationship and a partnership? We talk about relationship management all the time, but it's not from that human perspective, and it's not listening and acting the way that's really going to build a deep emotional relationship with the brand, because that's really, let's be honest, your emotions drive your behavior, which is what drives business results for an organization. So if you've ever had a bad experience, the way you felt changed your behavior, which then impacted the brand. So I think this listening and really having conversations is going to be even more important as we go more to automation. It's going to open up a lot of opportunity to have that relationship with your customers, bring them into how do you design, bring them into an advisory council, one-to-one conversations, changing how those work, and really asking and trying to gather information about what they're trying to accomplish and what their goals are. That's what I learned as a CEO. How would that change going forward? No, I think it's still part of that. It's the human to human, and that's never going to change.
Thank you so much. This was really insightful. This whole conversation was really insightful for me. One takeaway that I'm definitely keeping for myself is just hire and surround yourself with the type of people that bring the same energy or knowledge or expertise that you want to strategically move your company towards, and also bring customer experience in the center of your organization. Have this cross-functional teamwork that is happening. And with this, definitely, it will not be a problem of time. It will not be a problem of focus. It will not be even problem of finance, because when it's in the heart of the people who are already being paid for that, you don't necessarily need to open a separate budget for that. Stay open-minded, keep listening, and be mindful of the whole life cycle of your customers, and not necessarily just about the touch points that are particularly related to your brand. I am sure that all of our listeners and viewers will be taking their own takeaways and points that will help them bringing their customer experience to the next level. Thank you so much, Diane. It was a real pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And for anybody out there, keep going. There's a lot of skills, there's capabilities, there's competencies. A learning organization is a growing organization. So I encourage you to continue to attend podcasts and attend events and read about how great organizations are doing this. So thanks for letting that be a part of that